It's a moment burned into my memory. My father, standing at the bank hitting confirm on a $2.9 million wire transfer. The look on his face wasn't relief. It was pure, unadulterated greed. He thought he was stealing my future. What he didn't know was that he wasn't stealing my money at all. He was signing his own confession. And I'd been planning that moment, the complete demolition of my perfect, poisonous parents, since I was 27. My name is Amelia Warren, and for 29 years, I played the part of the dutiful, brilliant, and financially compliant daughter. To the outside world, the Warrens were the picture of success. My father, Richard, a charming real estate broker. My mother, Carol, a pillar of the local charity circuit. They lived in a sprawling colonial in Greenwich, Connecticut, their lives meticulously curated for public consumption. They were proud of me, their prodigy, who'd graduated from MIT early, co-founded a successful blockchain security firm by 25, and whose net worth was already creeping towards 8 figures. But behind the manicured lawn and the designer clothes, their love for me was conditional, a purely transactional relationship hinged on one thing: the legacy fund. When I was 18, my parents sat me down in Dad's mahogany-paneled home office. "Amelia," Mom said, placing her hand gently on mine. "We know you'll be earning substantial money soon. It's too much risk for a young person to manage alone. We've set up the legacy fund. You put 80% of your net profits into it. Dad and I will manage it, investing conservatively and ensuring it's safe for your retirement. It's a family trust, sweetheart, the foundation of your future." It sounded responsible, loving even. And for years I complied. Every bonus, every dividend, every profitable liquidation from my early ventures went straight into that account. They held the ultimate power. They were the primary co-signatories, meaning any withdrawal required their authorization, but in practice, they controlled the flow. They knew the total, down to the penny. $2,900,000. It was the amount they had quietly earmarked for their own early retirement cruise around the world, and a new condo in Miami. They weren't saving it for me. They were holding it from me. The control extended beyond the money. Every major life choice had to pass the Warren filter. My dating life, my professional wardrobe, even the brand of car I drove, all micromanaged to maintain the Warren image. When I turned 27, I had a sudden, terrifying epiphany. I asked Mom for a simple $50,000 withdrawal to invest in a friend's startup. "Absolutely not, Amelia," she'd said, her voice turning instantly cold, the veneer of warmth dissolving. "It's too risky. That money is safe. We will not jeopardize our future security because of your whims." Our future. That single, possessive pronoun was the key that unlocked the cage. In that moment, the girl who had believed in the family trust died, and the financial analyst who specialized in risk assessment and forensic auditing took her place. I realized they saw me not as a daughter, but as a high-yield, liquid asset. That day, I started planning my escape and my revenge. It wasn't just about the money. It was about destroying the control they had wielded over my life for so long. My plan took 2 years to meticulously execute. I found the best, most discreet trusts and estates attorney in New York, a brilliant, elderly man named Mr. Davies, who specialized in complex financial litigation. I presented him with the entire history, the financial records, and the original trust document they had pressured me into signing. "They're treating this like a piggy bank for their own benefit, Mr. Davies," I explained, leaning across the massive mahogany desk in his office. "They're not interested in my financial security. They're interested in controlling my decisions and cashing out when they think I'm independent enough not to notice." Mr. Davies, a man who had seen every flavor of family greed, nodded slowly. "They have cleverly structured this as a discretionary revocable living trust, where they are co-trustees with substantial authority. They believe the language is ironclad. But we can turn their power against them, Miss Warren, by using the very thing they love most, the law." The trap was born. A legal structure so intricate and dependent on their predictable greed that they couldn't possibly resist triggering their own downfall. First, I had to create 2 new accounts. One was the vault, my actual, untouchable, self-managed wealth. This account was offshore, hidden behind a maze of holding companies, and completely invisible to them. The second was the decoy account. This account, still within the U.S. banking system, was structured as a separate, newly minted irrevocable trust, effective only upon certain conditions. Crucially, the entire $2.9 million balance from the legacy fund was legally transferred to this decoy account, but only in name. The physical funds remained on the bank's ledger, temporarily segregated but still accessible under the old legacy fund co-signatory rules for a fixed 48-hour window. The core of the trap was a newly written clause in the decoy trust document, triggered precisely at midnight on my 29th birthday. Mr. Davies explained the mechanism. The moment the clock strikes 12 on your birthday, Miss Warren, your status as the grantor changes. The decoy trust becomes irrevocably yours. Any transfer of the full $2.9 million by any co-trustee, which technically, they still are in the old system, within 24 hours of that change will be legally classified not as a management decision, but as a deliberate act of wire fraud and felony conversion of assets, triggering an immediate, automatic hold on the funds and a mandated report to the Department of Financial Crime Enforcement, FinCEN. In simpler terms, they had a brief 24-hour window where the temptation to steal would be highest, and their action would instantaneously become a crime punishable by federal law, all thanks to my specific, obscure rider in the trust document. They would steal the money, but the money wouldn't go anywhere except into a legal void, trapping them. I spent the final 2 weeks leading up to my birthday calm, cold, and focused. I moved forward with the other preparations that would act as the necessary psychological provocation. I got officially engaged to my incredible fiancé, Alex, who knew nothing of the financial drama, but was thrilled to support my newfound independence. I put an offer on a small, perfect brownstone in Brooklyn, far from their Connecticut mansion. The evening before my 29th birthday was the night of the final move. The papers were signed late that afternoon. The $2.9 million was officially paper transferred into the decoy trust, and the 48-hour countdown on the co-signatory window began. The legal bomb was armed. My birthday dinner was held at Le Claire, a pretentious Michelin-starred restaurant in Manhattan. Their choice, of course. Everything was exquisite, sterile, and entirely for show. Mom wore a stunning emerald dress, and Dad looked every inch the self-satisfied patriarch. They were radiating the pride of ownership. To Amelia, Dad announced, raising his crystal glass. The jewel of the family and the future custodian of the Warren legacy. We're so proud of the responsible young woman you've become. I smiled, a genuine, chilling smile that didn't reach my eyes. Thank you, Dad. I have 2 pieces of big news tonight. And I mean big. I let the suspense hang in the air, watching their calculating faces. They expected a promotion, maybe a new acquisition. They never expected rebellion. First, I said, holding up my hand to show the antique platinum engagement ring Alex had given me. Alex and I are engaged. We're getting married next spring. Mom's smile flickered, a tiny spasm of displeasure crossing her face. Oh, darling. That's sudden. We'll need to vet his family, of course. The guest list will be complex, but we'll handle it. The keyword, handle. Control. Actually, you won't. I countered, my voice steady. We're planning a small ceremony. Just close friends. The temperature at the table dropped 5 degrees. Dad coughed, clearing his throat. Now, Amelia, be reasonable. The Warren wedding is a major social event. And second, I cut him off, leaning in conspiratorially. I've purchased my own home. A small brownstone in Dumbo. We close next month. This was the intended blow. Buying a home meant independence. Independence meant they no longer had the leverage of holding my savings hostage until I followed their instructions. Mom gasped, but it wasn't a gasp of joy. It was pure raw panic. You what? Amelia. That money, the legacy fund, it was meant for a grand house next to ours. We talked about this. You're going to pull $2.9 million out for some tiny Brooklyn hole. Ah, the legacy fund. I said, taking a sip of my wine, savoring the moment. Well, that's the thing. I'm 29 now. I'm legally an adult, and I'm financially stable enough to manage my own future. I looked them both directly in the eye. I'll be liquidating the entire $2.9 million balance tomorrow and transferring it to my personal portfolio. Thank you for holding it safe for all these years. I'll send the transfer instructions in the morning. The blood drained from my father's face. The sheer audacious panic of watching their crew's money vanish, coupled with the realization that they were losing control, was too much for them. They sputtered excuses about taxes, risk, and stability. I listened patiently, then politely ended the dinner, and wished them good night. I didn't need to wait up. I knew exactly what they would do. I got a text from Dad at 7 a.m., sharp, right as I was about to hit the gym. Amelia, we need to talk. This fund transfer is premature. We need to schedule a meeting. I ignored it. My 29th birthday had officially begun 4 hours ago, and the 24-hour trap was live. My prediction was flawless. They were too greedy, too entitled to ever let go. They knew the money was legally mine, but they reasoned that if they moved it fast enough, they could save it before I could complete my own transfer. They saw a brief, chaotic window to seize what they believed was rightfully theirs. They rushed to the bank, my father sweating in a poorly tied expensive silk tie. My mother, cold and decisive, watched as he sat down with their trusted private banker, a man whose career they had nurtured and who, foolishly, owed them one final favor. They fabricated an urgent family investment opportunity that required an immediate, full liquidation of the legacy fund, all $2.9 million, into a temporary, offshore account under my father's name. The banker, pressured by their history and social status, pushed the transaction through. At 9:34 a.m., the wire transfer was confirmed. Richard and Carol Warren walked out of that bank, thinking they had won. They thought they had saved their retirement, taught their rebellious daughter a hard lesson, and secured their financial future. They were smug, victorious, and utterly oblivious to the federal investigators who were already compiling a file. I invited them to my apartment that afternoon for a small family celebration, after I finished work. They arrived precisely at 5 p.m., their faces a carefully constructed mask of concern mixed with condescension. "Amelia," Mom began, stepping into my living room, her eyes already scanning for weaknesses she could exploit. "We had to take emergency measures this morning. You were being reckless. That money is too important for our family's stability. We've simply moved it to a secure holding account. We'll release it back to you when you show some maturity." Dad stepped forward, putting a heavy hand on my shoulder. "It's for your own good, kiddo. Think of it as a temporary safety lock. You'll thank us later." I gently removed his hand, stepping back. I didn't yell or cry. I simply smiled, reached for the remote, and turned on the television. I had a PowerPoint presentation waiting. "You really think you won, don't you?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "You think you stole my future?" "We protected it," Mom corrected sharply. "No, Mom," I said, walking over to my dry erase board, which was covered in flowcharts and legal jargon. "You committed a federal crime, and I deliberately set the trap for you to do it." I clicked the remote, and the first slide appeared. The Warren Legacy Fund. R.I.P. Their faces twisted in confusion. 2 years ago," I explained, gesturing to the board, "I understood what you were doing. You were exploiting a legal loophole designed for estate planning to fund your own lavish lifestyle. So I closed that loophole, not by confrontation, but by using the law as a weapon." I clicked to the next slide. The decoy trust and the 24-hour clause. "Yesterday afternoon, I transferred all $2.9 million into a new account, the decoy trust. Your co-trustee authority was legally maintained for 48 hours to ensure a smooth transition. However, the fine print, the clause I insisted on, which you never read, states that upon my 29th birthday, I, the grantor, assume sole irrevocable control. Any action by a prior co-trustee to transfer the entire sum within the subsequent 24 hours is automatically classified as the unauthorized, deliberate, and malicious conversion of assets, a fancy legal term for theft." I watched them process the words. My father went pale, his jaw slackening. My mother's eyes narrowed, searching for the escape hatch. "The money you wired this morning," I continued, pacing slowly, "didn't go into your offshore slush fund, Dad. The moment the bank processed the transfer, the $2.9 million was flagged by the bank's internal system. It triggered the trust's legal rider, and the funds are now frozen in a holding escrow, pending a full forensic audit and the resolution of the criminal case you just created for yourselves." I clicked the final slide. It was a simple, stark image. Federal wire fraud, 18 U.S.C. Section 1343. Wire fraud, I stated, the words tasting like victory. Because you used the wire system to move funds you knew, or should have known, were no longer under your discretionary control, all based on documents that are now irrelevant. Mr. Davies has already filed the complaint with the United States Attorney's Office. The investigation began the second that wire transfer was executed. My mother found her voice, a raw, strangled sound. You betrayed us. We are your parents. You betrayed me first, I countered, my voice rising with 2 decades of suppressed fury. You sold me a lie about family legacy, just so you could control my life and steal my savings. I didn't betray you, Mom. I simply chose to prosecute the crime you freely committed. Dad stumbled toward me, his face contorted in a mixture of rage and terror. You can call it off. We can return the money. We'll sign over the legacy fund. We'll give you everything. Too late, I said, shaking my head. The trigger has been pulled. The case is filed. You see, the $2.9 million you thought you stole? That was never my real money. That was the bait. I leaned in, delivering the final crushing blow. My real wealth, the money I made on my own, the money I actually needed for the brownstone, is in a fully protected, offshore portfolio you could never touch. That $2.9 million? It was just the cost of my freedom. And now, the federal investigation you triggered won't just look at the conversion of those assets. They'll look at everything. I listed their vulnerabilities, my voice sharp and clinical. The unexplained cash flow on your property flipping deals, the questionable deductions on last year's tax returns, and the outstanding bank loan secured against your house, which you intended to pay off with my money. I watched the realization hit them. Their meticulously constructed, image-driven world was crashing down. They weren't just losing the $2.9 million. The financial scrutiny triggered by my trap was going to unravel their entire fraudulent foundation. Get out of my house, I commanded, pointing toward the door. The life you built on my back is over. The social standing, the friends, the country club membership, it's all collateral damage now. And you did it to yourselves. They left in stunned, sputtering silence, too terrified of the legal consequences to argue further. I didn't hear from them for 3 months. Then came the newspaper clipping. Richard Warren, once a prominent figure, was under formal investigation for tax evasion and fraudulent asset declarations. Carol Warren had resigned from every board she sat on. They were fighting to save their own house from foreclosure. On my 30th birthday, Alex and I celebrated in our new Brooklyn brownstone. I finally had a life, a future, and a family built on honesty, not on financial chains. I got a single email that day, signed only with Mom and Dad. Amelia, we understand now. I read the words, and for the first time in years, the crushing weight of their control lifted. I didn't feel triumph, not exactly. I felt a cold, deep, and satisfying peace. I had traded $2.9 million for my soul, and it was the best investment I ever made. The legacy fund was dead. My legacy of freedom had just begun.